Hello, everybody, and welcome. I can't believe it. It's actually the 14th episode of Fiberside Chats today. So I'm really excited to be here and to have your company with me. And today I'm going to be interviewing Keba from the studio at Innisfree. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to her and get to know a little bit more about her Shetland sheep. And so before we begin, I just wanted to kind of let those of you that maybe you're joining us for the first time know that if you have any questions or any comments that you would like to make while you're hearing us chatting, feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments. And then at the end, I'll be able to go and read them off and respond to them. Okay, so without further ado, thank you so much, Keba, for coming today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to talk about sheep.
Well, I think when we're in this group, right, I know that wool is the first word, but definitely all types of sheep have, different qualities and properties. And it's not just one type of sheep that kind of makes this a magical craft, right? There's so much variety and difference. And I love the fact that there are so many different breeds and shepherds that are in the group so that we could learn about them, right? So that it's not just about getting one type of, wool to spin. Like it would be really boring to go to the grocery store and just always get like one type of apple. It's always wonderful when you can go to, an orchard and then they have like buckets of all these different types of apples that you didn't even know existed. And then the specialness of trying all of them is so exciting. And I know for you, the fiber that is the most exciting is the Shetland sheep. So can you tell us a little bit more what it is about Shetland sheep that you love, that drew you to them, that wanted you to have them, all the good stuff about the Shetland sheep?
Well, I actually, when I was in high school and junior high, I was in 4-H and I raised Corriedale sheep, which I found out later, do come in natural colors, but I was only familiar with the white cream colored ones that we have in this area. So I had been in sheep, graduated, went off to college, got married, got jobs, and then decided at some point we were going to come back to the farm, my family farm here, and take it over from my parents who were getting to at an age that they just weren't able to care for it anymore. We actually started off in beef cattle, which we had Angus cows, and they're really big and they're really strong. And at one point we decided, somebody's going to get hurt doing this because it's just the two of us, myself and my husband. And we just didn't have the help and somebody was going to get hurt. So we're like, okay, now what else can we do besides the beef cattle? And my first thought was, well, let's get a few sheep and see what happens. So I ended up getting a few Corriedale sheep, but by the time I got them, between when I first showed them and now, well, about 5 or 6 years ago, they had improved the breed. They were bigger, they were beefier. The wool was still very good quality, but they were so big, and I was just going to be having so much trouble dealing with them by myself. I'm like, I need to look for something a little bit smaller. Let's go to the internet and see what's out there. And I happened to stumble upon these Shetland sheep. I'm like, well, these look really interesting. They come in a variety of colors and they're only about 2 foot tall. That's something I can do on my own. And that's something that I can shear and maintain and take care of these animals. So I got 2 ewes and a ram, and as they say, the rest is history. Now I'm up to I think I have 19 adults and currently 6 lambs on the ground. Wow. So it was kind of that, I never had even heard of Shetland sheep until I had this bad experience with the Corriedales. And it's like, let's try it, see what happens. And then I found out all this cool stuff you can do with the wool and the different types of wool, and things just kind of spiraled from there.
So were you ever into any kinds of like fiber art, dealings, if you will, or any of the fiber arts before actually acquiring the sheep? Like, have you ever tried crocheting or knitting before that you thought, well, these cows are not working out, maybe sheep are the way to go? Or did you actually like learn about the fiber arts through picking out the animals you wanted to have?
I knew about the fiber arts because when I was younger, my mom had a spinning wheel and she was a weaver as well. And so I kind of grew up with those fiber arts around me. But I mean, being a kid, you don't really sometimes pay attention to that stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, that's something mom's doing, whatever. Yeah. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. And as I got older, I'm like, okay, well, let's try. And I knew how to crochet. Mom had tried to teach me how to knit for years, and I could just never figure out the 2 needles. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. I've got this. I had started buying different kinds of wool and yarns and trying to experiment with these things. I'm like, I got to do something with this stuff. So let's see if I can teach myself how to knit, which I actually managed to do, and started knitting. Yeah, I know. I was like, okay, something else I can do. It's like, now I need to buy all the stuff to do this. And so I just kind of started with knitting and using prepared Shetland fiber and different fibers. Then we went to the Wool Gathering, which is a large fiber festival in Yellow Springs, Ohio, every fall. And my mom's like, you know, look for a spinning wheel. You have these sheep now, a few of them, and you need to do something with the wool. So I got a spinning wheel and just kind of started making the yarn. Now, what can I do with my own hand spun versus all commercially prepared yarn? So it was quite the learning curve working with hand spun versus stuff that you can get off. Even mill spun it kind of works differently than hand spun yarn does.
So now when you got the sheep initially, were you thinking of having them for, you know, their fiber to sell and to send off to a mill? Was that kind of like what you were envisioning having them for, like even with the Corriedale?
I had initially thought I was going to do the entire sheep to shawl on my own. Okay. However, working with the Corriedale fleeces and later the Shetland, the washing part I found was so time consuming, resource consuming. I was like, I need to find a mill. I can shear them and I can spin and work with the yarn, but that middle part, I really need somebody who is a professional to do that. So there's a mill about an hour southwest of me, where I take all of my wool to be processed into roving and then get it back and can kind of pick up the process from there. But yeah, for the first couple of years, I was washing all of my my fleeces in the big Sterilite totes and just going through gobs of water, which when you're on a well, isn't really good for the system. My plants loved all that wastewater, but it was just so time consuming. I said somebody else needs to do this part of it for it to be a little bit more economical and just ecologically more sound than what I'm doing here.
Now, I haven't tried them myself, so I'm curious, given your water situation and like what you were describing, did you ever try the suet method of scouring those fleeces by any chance, or do you know what that is?
I did, yeah, okay. I did try to do that. My first fleece, I didn't realize there were air holes punched in the handle. So I thought I had it all sealed up nice and tight. I had it wrapped in a trash bag, and I opened that sucker up and like, nope, it's going to the mulch pile. I mean, it was nasty.
Yeah, so for those of you that are not, yeah, just in case people aren't familiar with it, right? There's this method that you can take a grease fleece and you put it in water in like a dark tub or like a closed tub, and you close it off and you allow the heat and the moisture to kind of do its thing with like these microbes that are already, you know, part of it's the sweat part, right? I think it's that's in the from the sheep, and it acts like a detergent or a cleaner, and the more you put in, basically, like the whiter the fleece is supposed to get. So you can go through several fleeces using the same water, but it's supposed to get, you know, funkier and funkier smelling. And I'm always fascinated how, you know, when you think of fiber, right, and the fact that like there had to have been the first sheep that like a person saw and thought like, oh wait, like I could take this woolly furry coat that this little animal has and like use it for my own personal you know, use and gain, and the methods of turning it into fiber, right? The methods of cleaning it. It's so interesting how we can have all these detergents, we can have all of these different like processes, ways, like you were saying with the Sterilite tub, you know, I've fleece washed in the shower with Sterilite tubs too. So I think that's, you know, all of our first, like, how am I supposed to clean this thing? And what am I supposed to do? You know? And so just even knowing that you can clean a fleece by in its own, you know, self, like it's got this own like self-cleaning mechanism built in if you want to try to use it that way, just really fascinates me about the fiber in general, you know, that, yeah, of course, like there's, you know, silk and, you know, cashmere, like all these other wonderful fibers to try, but there's something really great about all of the different I don't know, perks, I guess, that come with wool and sheep that just, I don't know, it just really fascinates me, especially because I grew up in the city. I grew up in Brooklyn. So anything about like farm life just seems so foreign to me and so exciting. Like, wow, you can clean a fleece just by putting it in a tub of water. That's crazy. You know, I don't know. I just get
And
excited.
honestly, I grew up here on the farm and I didn't even know that until, I mean, thank you, Facebook, for all these wonderful fiber groups. I didn't even know you could do that. And I'm like, I can just put this like in a tub and seal it up with water and it's going to be clean. I don't know about that. But the second one actually turned out pretty decent. The first one, the bugs had gone through the air holes. And so that was just, it was gross. I just kind of put that on the mulch pile. I do want to try, and I don't really have a good location, so I'm going to have to kind of come up with a way to do this. Historically, shepherds would also throw the fleeces over hedges and let just the action of the rain clean the fleeces as well. And I'd really like to try that, but I need to come up with something to throw it over because I don't have a hedge. So yeah, but
you can have a makeshift one. Yeah. Well,
exactly,
you know, and that's the thing too, that's also really interesting, right? Is like, as you kind of grow into becoming a fiber, you know, artist or spinner or weaver, whatever it is you do with fiber, you know, a lot of times people will try to figure out what can I do before I buy the really expensive tools to do this, right? And so it's always interesting, the inventions and contraptions that people come up with for figuring out like best practices. Like, okay, I don't have room for, you know, all of this stuff here. So how can I, you know, make a pegboard that also, you know, like a, you know, for warping a loom, you know, like maybe I just use my chair turned upside down, and it's like, wow, like it's really fascinating to me how people come up with all these interesting ways of approaching getting a job done, even if you don't have the right tools for it. But definitely, I'm sure sending it off to a mill makes it so much easier. So now that you have all this free time because your fiber's gone off to the mill, now what do you like to do with your time?
Well, at the moment, when the fiber is off at the mill, I do have my farm to take care of. We do have a farmer that takes care of the crop part of it, but I do have the acreage with the sheep. So I am doing pasture maintenance, grass maintenance, cutting down just gobs of honeysuckle and other brushy things that just kind of get in the way. Although I do have goats for that as well. So my goats are really good they've actually taught the Shetlands to eat some of these browse things like the honeysuckle and different things that grow up in the fence line. And so everybody's eating that. So I just kind of go through with the chainsaw and lop it all off after they're finished with that. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into the farm as far as the pasture management and kind of planning ahead. I'm already thinking about what hay needs I'm going to need for the coming winter. And we're just now at the end of May. So I'm already thinking about that. How many sheep and goats do I have? What do I need for all of that? I also work off farm, which I know a lot of fiber artists also do if they have a farm. I work at a vet clinic 4 days a week, and then I'm also caregiver for a couple family members as well. So the plate can be pretty piled high some days.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, the thing I know that about most farmers is that it's not the type of job, or if you're like a shepherd, you can't just like leave the animals, you know, like, yeah, maybe you can find someone to do one or two, you know, jobs to help you out, but it's very difficult to kind of leave that job. You know, it's a 24/7, you know, 24 hours, 7 days a week type of job. So when was the last time you were able to go on a vacation? Just curious. Are you, because I know you said you're a caretaker, right? Like that must be a really long time since you've been able to do something for yourself.
I think probably the last time I went on a vacation with my husband was actually before we came back to the farm. So it's probably been since like before 2008 that this even happened. But
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I mean, I'm a big believer. I read this somewhere, and I don't even know who to give credit to for this, but it was basically live the life or compose your life so that you don't need a vacation from it. And so I really tried to do that. Obviously, there's some days I'm like, you know, babe, you've got the animals. I'm going to go get a coffee or something. I just need to get away for a few hours and kind of clear my brain. I really love going hiking. I've started walking and not running. I walk 5Ks. So I've started doing that this year as well for a little bit of like the mental health balance thing. And yeah, I mean, I love to read and all sorts of other stuff that I do amongst all these gotta do's that I have since having a farm. Yeah.
Well, so I'm curious too, because I know, with people that work in the fiber art industry that, obviously we do it because we have a love of the fiber arts, in of itself. So do you find that it's challenging, or is there a way that you can separate like what is yours versus what's the business? So like I know, for example, sometimes indie dyers are dyeing all this gorgeous yarn, but then they go and they buy fiber from other people or yarn from other people because it's almost like cooking, like you're sick of your own stuff. So I'm curious, for you, how do you keep it separate? Or like what are the things that you like just for you that really aren't, part of the farm? Or have you just not been able to do it? Like, have you not found time to do the fiber art stuff?
I do. I dabbled in dyeing for a little bit and tried that for a few. I think that was still when I had the Corriedales, and so I had the Corriedale yarn at that point. And I'm just like, I tried this, and I'm like you said, buying other people's stuff. If I want something that's not natural color, I buy it. I just dyeing is one of those things. I understand the process, and it's really fun to do, but it's just, to me, it's very time consuming, and to get the exact colors that you want, or if you want this kind of riot of things going on, it's just a little too much, a bridge too far for me. So I leave the dyeing to the folks who really enjoy doing that, and I will gladly support them for that. But as far as like things off farm are not farm related, gosh, I can't even think of anything off the top of my
But just like knitting, for example, or something like that. But it's funny that you say that about dyeing in color, because I felt like in all of the things that you were saying about it that you didn't like, you're speaking my love language. And the idea of like having to get up early and, clean up the poop of like animals that weigh as much as me or more, like just all of that just sounds like, no, I want to buy the fiber from people like you, like, and then I'll put the dye on it, right? So it's great that, that people are able to jump in at whatever part of the process of the creation of, a final garment or fabric. And we can really have the luxury of kind of picking and choosing what part about it we want, right? Like, it's not like the only fiber I can spin is if I raise that animal, otherwise it would just be cat hair. So.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, that's just the cool thing. I came into this thinking I had to do everything. I had to raise the animal, shear the animal, process the fiber, spin it up, knit it, dye it at some point. And I'm just like, I don't have to do that. I can buy beautifully dyed things from you and my other fiber friends who do that. And I can use the local mill. I'm very thankful that I have a local mill to send my wool, and she can professionally clean it much better and quicker than I can do. So it's great that we can pick and choose that. And anybody out there, you don't have to do all of it by yourself. Find that community and find those people that can do the parts that you either can't do or it's just impossible to get done for whatever reason. So I just love that we can pick and choose all that.
Yeah, and I definitely think, like how you were saying, even early on, washing the fleece for the first time, and realizing that it was wasting water. I think there is a real benefit or a bonus to at least once in your fiber art, career as a spinner, weaver, whatever, that you really try to go through the whole process and that you really see what is it like to wash a fleece, even if you damage it, even if you felt it, because I think that there's such a fear of failure, of messing it up, of making a mistake, that often we're thinking that the first time we do something, it has to be perfect, right? And so it's like the first time we make, and like the first time we make toast, for example, right? We may burn it. And if we burn it, we're learning. We're learning either that we love burnt toast or we're learning that we cooked it for too long and to like lower the temperature or cook it for less time. And so I think those people that have gone on to become really great chefs will just kind of chalk up making a mistake of burning toast as part of the process to become a great chef, right? Like you have to burn toast in order to see that what happens when you use too much heat, right? It's learning. And then you get to a point where now you're comfortable with knowing where that ranges of time and temperature, or, with dyeing, and all of that. So like, I know now I don't like natural dyes, but I wanted to give it a chance just so that I could understand how that works. And also I think appreciate it too. Like now I have such a great appreciation for shepherds, because I know that it's not just, putting the food out in the morning and waiting, a couple of months to give them a haircut, that it, like you said, that it's such a lifestyle, and that dedication to raising those animals is so appreciated from people like me that, like I said, I don't think I would be able to do that, really, quite honestly, even though like I love animals. It just seems like it's such a big part of yourself that you're giving to the animals in order to kind of provide these materials for us to use. So thank you for that part. But I know you're talking about Shetlands and the natural colors, right? So can you talk to me a little bit more about either what is it that appeals to you about the natural colors, or, what makes Shetland different as far as their coloring compared to like other sheep?
At least in my area, this is a big meat sheep area. So you basically have white wool and maybe a black face with one of the down breeds or something like that. And so Shetlands, I mean, there's 11 official colors. There is,
oh wow,
yeah, there's several. You have the black, you have the cream color into white, and then you have all these awesome shades of grays and browns and things like that. And just the fact that there's this, I mean, they call it the Shetland rainbow because there is just this wide variety. And even within the black, I have one of my girls, she's black, but then she has these reddish sun bleached tips. And so it kind of gives it a red cast when you are working with it. So it's just really cool differences in color. Yeah, this is actually hers right here. Some of the yarn that I spun up for April. Oh, get that over there.
There you go. Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, and with the light, it doesn't show it so much, but it does have this kind of brownish red cast to it that is just so cool. And then what else do I have over here? Oh, this is another one of mine. This is really pretty oatmeal color, kind of a light brown with a little bit of gray in it as well. So there's just all these really cool colors. And that's really what drew me to them, is just having all this color out in the field, not just a field of white sheep, which is beautiful, but just the little interest points of having all these different colored sheep.
Well, yeah, and especially if you have a small enough flock, you know which one is missing, right? Because you'd be like, the gray one, where did the gray one go?
That's right, yeah. I mean, even
like, I'd be like Zsa Zsa Gabor and like Green Acres. I'd be like, wait, where did the brown one go? We're missing it.
Okay, somebody's missing up there.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So like when you're using their fiber, like those yarns you have are like solid, right? So they come from one sheep, but do you ever have fun as far as like blending them or mixing them, or do you prefer to spin them as solids, and then whatever you're doing to create like the fabric or the project, is that how you like to mix it? Like whether you're going to do like Fair Isle or some kind of techniques where you want to have multiple colors of yarns in them?
I would do the second. I like spinning just the straight colors and then working that in. I'm working my way up to do something in Fair Isle. Color changes kind of frighten me, kind of like cables do. And I'm just like, okay, I can do this. I just need to really follow the pattern carefully. But I prefer to keep the colors separate. Some of my customers have purchased and they've mixed them together, and it's just awe-inspiring, some of these beautiful things that they make out of just 3 colors or 4 colors or even 2. It's just so much depth and pattern to it. So yeah, I keep things simple for myself, but then I'm working my way up to knitting something Fair Isle one of these days.
Well, what's really cool, like whenever people get like intimidated for doing like a full sweater or a full sock or something like that, I really love, they have like those little miniature like sweater patterns, to make like ornaments or like mini socks or things like that. So it's a great way to kind of like test out, the needle size, the gauge and all of that. You could still have a cute little, swatch. It doesn't have to be a boring square. You can play around with shaping and all of that and stitch patterns and stuff, but it's a little bit more bite-sized. So I think those are kind of fun. I've never tried it myself, but it's definitely one of those things that I was always like, that would be a fun way to kind of plan a sweater, but just do it like an ornament size so that you don't feel too intimidated by the whole process.
And if you don't like the whole thing, you haven't really wasted that much yarn. I mean, it's still not a waste because you made something beautiful, but you don't, I didn't just burn an entire skein of 5 different colors to make this thing and I hate it, sort of. Well,
and that's the thing too, like that, not only it's the making the mistake, right? But like, let's say you make something and then you're really unhappy with it. There are times when, you know, we take things that we consider to be so precious, right? And we save them because we don't want to ruin them, we don't want to mess it up, and we don't want to waste it. And then in avoiding using those things that we love, we're then using things that I wouldn't necessarily say are subpar, but they're not the specials, right? So it's like putting the china in the cabinet and waiting until we have guests come over. And as you can see, as you can see in the past few years, right, maybe we don't have as many guests as we used to. So like we're just still eating off of these paper plates, when I think the more you use the good stuff, so to speak, then that's when, you know, first of all, you're using the thing that is really special. So like you're actually getting to like interact with it. You're getting to touch it more, as opposed to the occasional, where did I put this? Open the drawer. Oh, that's right. There's my special thing, closing the drawer and never seeing it again, you know? So the idea of just like, I don't know, bringing things that we love kind of more to the forefront and using them more. I think I don't know. It's just one of those things that we have a fixed amount of time that we can actually knit and spin, right? Like, as you know. So it's like when I'm doing it, I really want to use the good stuff. I don't want to use the practice stuff and wait and never get to the good stuff. So that's just my hedonistic approach, but you know.
No, I totally agree. I have several of the good china in my everyday cabinet, and every once in a while I'm like, you know, I'm just going to use the pretty stuff today. I want the pretty the plate. I'm going to use it.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So I'm bound and determined to do a Kiviyat blend with some fiber I have, because it was a Christmas gift that's been sitting in my closet for like over 10 years. So I'm determined this year that's going to be one that I'm going to blend it. I'm going to do something with it. So I know you said for yourself that you like to just use it straight up sheep, but when you send your fiber off to the mill, do you ever have like blends made with the Shetland fiber, or are those also just kept straight, like 100% pure sheep?
I've only done 100% pure sheep, because really that's what I have. I have, speaking of things that have been sitting around for a while, I have a lovely alpaca blanket that a friend of mine down the road gave me in appreciation for things that I've been helping her out with. And I'm like, gosh, I need to do something with this. So I think the next load, I'm going to mix this alpaca in with it. Personally, I have a thing about the texture of alpaca. It kind of feels too much like hair to me, and I don't really like to spin it, but I'm hoping I can get a nice blend with the wool that it won't have that hair feel to me, and I can spin up something with that.
Well, not that it would necessarily make it easier, but I know in a couple of fiber festivals or like guild meetings where we had spinning competitions and they had like challenges for us. One of the fun ones was trying to spin wearing a pair of rubber gloves. So if you really want to give yourself I don't like the way alpaca feels trying with rubber gloves. It's always a fun, for any of you that plan spinning events or whatever, definitely trying to spin wearing gloves is always a fun one.
I'm sure that would be very interesting.
Yeah. So now I know when I was first like asking the vendors like who would like to be a part of these Fiberside Chats with me, and you graciously signed up. One of the things that you were talking about was fibershed raising. So can you let me know like what does that mean? Because I've never really heard that term before. I really don't know what's that about.
Well, fibershed is a similar concept to a watershed or a food shed. It's trying to keep things as local as possible and using what's in your area. The U.S. has a little bit of an issue with this in some areas because we have taken apart the mills and the facilities that were doing the fiber in the regional areas. And so we're kind of having to build that back up. So Fibershed actually started out in California. The founder, Rebecca Burgess, wanted to see if she could outfit her entire wardrobe locally. So, and California—
Was she making for a very long time?
I was reading the book and I'm like, how is this story going to end? Because I don't know about that.
I want to know how it starts. Does she just give up her wardrobe right away, or does it as like a slow transition?
I think she started transitioning and she wanted to see, I think it was maybe within a year or so, how much she could get locally. And she ended up doing that because there's a lot of producers out there. There are still a lot of facilities that can mill and spin. And then she got connected to weavers and sewers and tailors and things like that to get this wardrobe put together. But she found it very difficult in a lot of aspects because of the disconnect between the producers and the mills and the dyers and the fabric sewers and everything like that, trying to get this whole thing together. And so she wrote a book about it called Fibershed, and it's kind of exploded into this worldwide, hey, let's look around and see what's local or regional to us. I'm a member of the Rust Belt Fibershed, which is actually based up in Cleveland, and the number is kind of arbitrary, but their region is 250-mile radius of Cleveland. So that kind of encompasses us almost all the way down to Cincinnati. And they're just kind of putting together, educating people why should we even talk about sourcing our garments and our raw materials locally. And now that we understand why we should do this, who's here that we can kind of pull together to do the in process from sheep to garment, and make it something that's completely local. They do a 1 year, one outfit, which is basically kind of what Rebecca was doing, taking a year and you make at least a 3-piece garment out of materials that have all been sourced in your fiber shed. So it's really cool what they're doing. And they're also working with plant fibers, all sorts of different things. It's not just animal fiber. There are also plant fibers involved with that. But yeah, it's just kind of finding out what's local to you and how you can use that to build your wardrobe and to build and just the local community and the local economy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that if like the electricity goes out because, you know, of a power outage in my area, that there's this, you know, like instantaneous flooding of fear, like, oh my goodness, you know, how are we going to live without electricity? And,
Yeah.
you know, when you're talking about like, how can you live just using things that are within an X mile, you know, radius from you? Well, it's like, I would be naked. I wouldn't have food. Like, what would I do? You know? And so there's this, I wouldn't say like dumbing down of people as far as like where their food comes from, where their clothes comes from, but it's like, we want things so instantaneous that we're not even aware of what goes into making that happen, and at what expense to, you know, the planet, and, you know, just all of the pros and cons, right? So we can get things really immediately, but, you know, is there a disconnect or break in these natural cycles, right? That if you get things that are local and you support things that are local, then locally you also thrive too. So it's just really fascinating to me, the whole you know, infrastructure that we have set up. And then when even people see you like knitting, and they might be like, well, why are you knitting a pair of socks? You can go and buy them. And so it's like not even understanding how things that are handmade might actually be better than things that are made by a machine, or that there might be nuances about them that you can't really explain to someone until they actually get a chance to experience it, you know? And so, yeah, all of that kind of stuff, I find really incredible. So like when it comes to the, like with your sheep too, does that also mean like the feed that you have for them, you try to source that locally, and, you know, like you try to sell everything local too, like, so you won't, you know, travel and go really far to, you know, festivals that are really far away? Like, do you try to keep everything local, or is it more just the focus of like using a local mill and things like that?
Well, for me personally, with my flock, I actually don't grain feed them. Shetlands actually are a primitive sheep, and they will actually get sick and possibly bloat if they get too much grain. So I completely—
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. Like,
guilty.
So they are completely grass fed. I do get sweet feed from our local feed store. It actually is an Ohio company, so I guess that could be considered local. That the feed is. It's kind of a sweet feed for a treat, or if I need them to move from point A to point B, I'll rattle the bucket of grain, and they're like, here we come. And so I try to do as much local as I can. As far as selling, I mean, I will ship just about anywhere, but yeah, I do try to keep it local for the festivals. My big one is the wool gathering in September, I think it is. And I've looked at doing other ones, but right at the moment, since it's just me doing the fiber thing and the bulk of the farm maintenance as well, it's kind of hard to get away for a 2-day, 3-day festival, even some places close as like Worcester or Toledo or something like that, or over in Indiana. But yeah, I try to do things as locally as I can, and just kind of push that, hey, we are here. Some of us might be kind of hard to get a hold of. There are a lot of shepherds around here and producers that just don't do computers very much, or they don't know where to start selling their stuff, or they don't have the time to sell them. There's all sorts of reasons why a lot of the producers around here do or don't do certain things.
Yeah, and you know, that's another fascinating point too, because it's like here you are, you want to specialize in your one thing, right? You want to specialize in raising these animals, taking care of the animals, and doing that well. But then, you know, now with like social media and marketing and like all of these things, because it's definitely becoming more of, especially with like the Wool and Fiber Arts Group, which I think is amazing, that we can reach people that maybe we were never able to reach before. And so being part of these online communities and just really, you know, understanding that there's more to the world outside also of our little box. Like sometimes we can, you know, think globally, but, you know, like also be very limited too, and just stay in our little boxes. So I'm curious, like, how did you hear about the Wool and Fiber Arts Group, or what got you interested or excited about joining it?
I was actually thinking about that, and I don't remember how I heard about it. I think it was probably from another Facebook group about fiber, and Ellen was wanting to start this. The pandemic was just getting rolling, and all of us small folk were like, oh, what are we going to do? Our festivals are getting canceled. There's just, what's going to happen to us? And so I signed on. I'm like, hey, let's give this a shot. And I guess 2 years later, here I am. And yeah, it was really cool what you were saying about that. Is just, I was thinking about this the other day. There was a point where some of us who had been there since the beginning, there was a conversation, well, do we still want to keep doing this thing? Or opening back up and people are going out again. And so it was put to the WAFA community, hey, what do you think about this? There were so many people who just don't have these things near them. There's not a local fiber producer. There's not a fiber festival within a day or two of them. And it's just kind of shifting our mindset. Hey, if I really think about it, I have at least 3 mills that are within a 3-hour distance of me, but a lot of people don't have that. So let's keep WAFA going to help these people who can't get to a fiber festival, aren't able to whatever, and to just keep things rolling for them. And everybody seems to benefit.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that, you know, what appealed to me the most when I first got into spinning was, even more than the actual act of spinning, was the camaraderie of meeting people that enjoyed it too. Almost, I would say, like superseded the joy that I had of spinning, because I felt like when you could talk to people that get it, there was such a joy or a happiness that would ensue, that like if you talk to someone that kind of like raised their eyebrow at you, like why are you like knitting now, or why are you spinning now? It's like, I need to be around people that get it, you know. And when you go to a guild meeting, it's nice because you're around people that get it, and they could be, you know, from all different walks of life. They could be, you know, little kids that are kind of just tagging along, helping their family, or it could be, you know, older people that have been doing it their whole lives, or just recently retired people that are, you know, looking for hobbies to get into. So it's really so cool to go to those guild meetings and kind of connect with people that way. But I really feel like this group is very much like a guild meeting, that, you know, we have like the potlucks, and we have, you know, the show and tells, and we have like all the fun things about guilds. We have the vendors coming to sell, but really it's that, you know, there is this place where everybody wants everybody to succeed, right? We want the people that are spinning to succeed. We want the vendors that supply the fibers to succeed. And I think that group think and that group mentality is what makes it successful for everybody, right? So that you have people now that are feeling like they're competent spinners and they're competent weavers, or, you know, maybe if they're wanting to needle felt, now they know the things they can make. So it's really interesting, yeah, how it's very self-sustaining, you know, as opposed to, you know, if you go to a guild meeting, maybe like the presidents change and like people change and all of that. Like I feel like that here, that's a very, I'm trying to like a common thread, no pun or no pun intended.
And that's so true. And if you want to learn about one of those things, I mean, join in one of the demos. Here's how to needle felt or the wet felt, or so you want to try Fair Isle knitting, here's how I do it, sort of thing. And so we can just keep learning from each other, and having that community that we can just geek out on this cool thing that we just saw or just bought. It's like, hey, I just got a swing picker, look at this, and everybody's like, yay.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to, oh no, why are you bringing that torture device here? So definitely, I agree.
Nails for?
Exactly. Okay, so I'm just gonna go now and check the comment area to see if anyone has any questions. So I'm going down and see. So hello, Alexis. Some people were saying hello and they're happy to be here. Okay, so someone was asking what kind of sheep. So yeah, so you have Shetland, but do you have any other kinds of sheep, or is it just Shetland now?
I actually have two Icelandic sheep. I did a swap with one of my friends who was looking for a couple of Shetland ewe lambs. So I do have a couple of Icelandic sheep that I guess they're more of an experiment than anything. It's just interesting because the Icelandics are a double-coated breed. So I could separate the tog and the cell, the long fibers from the short, fluffy fibers, and do that. At some point, I will probably do that, but right now I'm just getting used to working with the fibers together in one not really soft next to skin, good for a hat and gloves kind of fiber. So that's been fun to do. But yeah, as far as that, I moved along from the Corriedales. I might get some at some point just because it's nostalgia, I guess. But yeah, I'm totally focused in on the Shetlands and I'm loving every minute of that.
Okay, awesome. Let's see if there's any other comments or questions. So, okay, so someone said suet and it stinks, but draining in the yard, then rinsing it removes the smell. Does it smell like fermentation? So I haven't personally tried the suet method myself. So if anyone in the group that's watching in the live, if you want to comment and let us know your experiences with that, I'm someone that's like super sensitive to smells. You know, I have a little boy in my house, so like that's enough. I don't need to be washing fleece.
That smell for you.
That's enough. Yeah. That's totally enough.
The suet fleece, the fleece that I did the suet method that succeeded, it was pretty stinky. I mean, it to me it just smelled like barnyard, which I'm used to that smell. I would suggest don't open it with your head over the tote because that's all going to come right up your nose and it's
like the dishwasher with glasses. You know, you have to have it.
Like look away.
Yes. Okay. Oh, so someone else said that they raise Shetlands and that they like working with Shetland. So you definitely have a lot of Shetland fans in the comments. Yep. And someone said, I like the rose gray and silvery gray. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you can come back and maybe post pictures in the comments just so that we can see like the different colors, you know, because I'm not really familiar with all of them. So I would love to see the full range, especially because I'm sure those that are more in the gray area would be really lovely. And I know you're not a dyer, but it would be really lovely to over dye and get all of those like nuances that when you're dyeing over white fiber, you may not be able to have or to infuse, you know, naturally.
No, I haven't done it myself, but I've been told that Shetland takes dye beautifully. I do have a couple of pictures. Can I share screens the way we're doing things today?
I don't know at the moment. Hang on, let me try. I think, okay. I didn't have it set up, so you threw me a curveball, but go for it. Now you should have sharing capability.
Let's see if it'll work. Okay, yep. Well, let's try this one. So here we are. This is my Shetland rainbow.
Okay, wow. Yeah.
Those are actually all from my flock.
Wow.
Let's see. Actually, this one isn't. This one is from Pippa. She's the black with the, can you see the cursor there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, that one's from Pippa. She's the black with the red tips. This is from a couple Shetland sheep. I bought some fleeces off of an acquaintance of mine up in northern Ohio, which was a black with a whole bunch of silvery gray fibers in it. This, I believe, was who was this? I can't remember who this was, but a more solid black. And then we have a light gray, a dark gray, a cream, and then kind of the brownish color. That one's from Faylene right there. So yeah, these are the whole Shetland rainbow that I can get from my flock.
Yeah, that would be gorgeous. You could just take the whole thing and put one color on it and get such a lovely you know, array of colors from that one color.
Right. And this is what it looks like on the hoof.
Oh, wow. Okay. So so for me personally, I would want to go with the one with the little black spot on his back or her back. That would be the one on her back. Yeah, that would be the color that I would love to over dye.
Exactly. Yep.
And you could
Yeah,
split the fleece down the middle, and then you could have like half of it, you know, being the natural color, and then half of it for like color accents, and that would probably be really lovely in like the yoke or something like that of a sweater.
And the really cool ones about these, I think I can't see whose head this is. I think this might be Lily. Once you get this into roving, those black and gray fibers kind of obviously mix together, and it just gives this such a nice heathered look to it. I mean, that would just be spectacular with an over dye, just to see what it would do with those lighter fibers. Yeah, but here's a few of my cream colors. It's really cool. Shetlands actually can change they will change fleece colors. Let me see if I can get back to the.
Like as they age, you mean?
Yeah, okay. They can come out one color and then.
So they can be like iridescent over the course of their life.
Something like that. These two here, you see they have we would call it sugar lips, is they have the whiter muzzles there. Let's see, that is Bjorn and Gita, and that brown one is Gunhild. We were watching Vikings last year, and so all the lambs got named from the show Vikings.
Nice.
But these two black ones, they're actually going to turn silvery gray as they age. I don't have a picture of their fleece this year, but this is their lamb fleece this year, and it's kind of silvery gray at the bottom, and it kind of turns into this kind of almost like light black at the tip. So they come out black with a little bit of white, and then they just turn gray. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and well, thank you for sharing those pictures with us. Yeah, and I think that would also be really interesting. I'm curious if any of the shepherds out there have saved a fleece from a sheep that was like a color, like a non-white sheep, all throughout its life, and then spun, you know, the yarns from like the different ages, and then use those together in a project just to see how the variety and variation of that would be a kind of a cool thing to do. I'm curious if anyone that's watching has ever done something like that. I'd love to see the project.
That would be neat.
Yeah, so someone said, others in my guild found it very smelly. Yes, it's definitely a smelly process. Someone said, I did suet method once with about 2 pounds of horribly poop-tagged skirtings. I put in a 10-gallon pickle bucket, put a lid on it, left it on the back porch, and forgot about it. Yeah, I think the forgetting about it part is probably not the favorable way, but they said, because the lid was designed to seal well, I didn't even smell it. The wool came out amazing. I'm planning to try again this year with fleeces I actually care about. Now, what's funny is that when you do those kinds of things, right, and you actually then say, okay, I'm going to do something with the thing that I don't care about, and then it comes out amazing, and then you go and you try it with the things that you do care about, and then you're like, wait, what happened? So sometimes it's the properties of the things that we don't like that sometimes surprise us. So definitely keep us posted on how it turns out. I would love to see.
I want to know how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, so I know, again, in the tradition of these Fiberside chats, we always like to kind of talk about the daily holiday or the holiday of the day. And I know today is Victoria Day in Canada. So for the Canadians out there celebrating, cheers to you. But you were saying something about how like the Shetland sheep had a connection to Canada. So.
Yeah, actually, the gentleman's name was Colonel G.D. Daly. He was from Cambridge, Ontario. He was importing different animals that he raised to sell the offspring to zoos because he believed that these animals raised in captivity would survive better in zoo and circus settings than animals born in the wild. And this was back in the 1930s. He met someone who was involved with the Rare Breed Survival Trust, and that was kind of, they were working to preserve domestic breeds of animals in the United Kingdom. So he learned about this breed that was called Shetland from the islands, and people were working, they were working in the oil rigs and in different professions, so they weren't keeping up their flocks very well. Things were getting mixed, different breeds were getting mixed together, and he thought this was something worth saving. So he imported, I think it was 3 rams and 20 some ewes into Canada to start the first flock in North America to try to save these to save these animals that were in danger of extinction. If I remember the story right, that original flock was permanently quarantined on his farm, and the offspring had to wait like 3 or 4 months, I think, before they could be sold and leave the farm. So he's kind of like the originator of the Shetlands in North America, and then it kind of just expanded out from there. So yeah, thank you, Colonel Daly, for bringing the Shetlands over through Canada.
Well, thank you for sharing that bit of history, because it's always interesting. Obviously, like the sheep that we spin when they do come from other countries, it's interesting what was the thinking behind bringing them here. So thank you for giving us that backstory. And so before we conclude today, I just want to let everybody know, if you enjoyed this Fiberside chat, if you came in a little bit late, don't worry, you can just go ahead and search the group and you can see all of the previous episodes. It'll also be up on the Wool and Fiber Arts YouTube channel. So again, if you didn't get the beginning part of the video, or if you want to share, the video with people maybe that are outside the group that you think would find this interesting or fascinating, you'll be able to. And I just want to thank you so much, Keba, for coming today, for talking to me, for sharing all of your, information and knowledge about them. Is there anything else you would like to say? Final thoughts for people?
Don't be afraid to try something new. We were talking about spinning different things earlier, and just keep experimenting with it. I've had these sheep, I've only had these sheep for about 5 or 6 years. I'm learning new things to do with their fiber and how to work with it every year. So it's going to be a continual learning process, and that's part of the thing I enjoy the most about raising sheep is I keep learning.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. And for those of you that would like to find out about the next Fiberside chat, it's going to take place next Monday. So that's Memorial Day. And it's going to be at 1:30 p.m. And I'm going to be speaking with Kayla from Four Hearts, Mainly Fiber. And it's going to be at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So I know most of you might be like barbecuing or off celebrating the holiday. But again, you can always catch the replays. However, it is going to be the last one for a while, because festival season and workshop season is beginning. So, I have to kind of put my time towards those things, but definitely you'll come back probably in the fall and we'll do some more Fiberside chats. So there's going to be one last one next week, and we're going to be talking, which is really interesting too, about farming, but specifically ways that people that might have chronic health conditions can come up with adaptive methods for farming, so that it's not just necessarily for able-bodied farmers. There's other ways that you can also be a farmer. So I'm kind of curious and interested to speak to her about what those modifications are. But again, thank you so much today for your time, Keba. I really appreciate it. And for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.